Hi, I'm your host, John Pope, and this is episode number 8 of the 100% Podcast. Today I want to talk about my less than triumphant return to the arena of American football, the flag version this time. So earlier this week, I was sitting here in my office making calls, and I overheard Connor Sella, one of my employees, speaking about his flag football game. And he's a former Rice football player in his mid-20s. Another one of my employees is another Rice football player in his early 20s, and they're on this flag football team together. And I overheard him talking about how they were missing a guy, and they weren't going to have any subs. They weren't going to have enough players to compete in this flag football league. And he was like, "Oh man, where do we find somebody? Who should we call?" And I'm sitting here getting more and more offended each moment, just thinking, I can't believe he hasn't asked me to play. You know, I've got skills, I've got game, and so finally I had to ask. I said, "Hey, what about me?" And he said, "Oh, you want to play?" And one of the guys, Brady, got a big smile on his face, and I said, "Yeah, I want to play." And they said, "You're serious?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Okay, yeah, well, you can come play." And so I went home and told my wife, and her first reaction was, "Well, don't get hurt, I hope you don't pull a muscle or tear your ACL." And that kind of angered me. I thought, man, what's going on here? I mean, how have I been so disrespected by not only my employees, but also my wife, thinking that I can't go out here and play in a simple flag football game when I played football for 15 years. And I still consider myself to be in pretty good shape. And so needless to say, Connor gives me the instructions. I sign the waiver, sign away my life. If I get injured, it's not their fault. And he says, "Well, do you have cleats?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do. And I think I've got my cleats from SMU." And so I find my old duffel bag where I've got all my old sports equipment, leather jackets, jerseys, things like that. And I find my old red and white cleats from SMU. They're 14 years old. And I finally got to realize my dream of wearing a headband as well to play football in. All the guys now are wearing these, samurai-style headbands. And I thought, man, that looks cool. But the problem is my head was always too big to wear any sort of a headband, bandana, because I couldn't pull the helmet over my forehead. So since flag football doesn't have helmets, I got to wear headbands. So I wore the white headband, had the white and red cleats, white shirt, looking clean, looking good, feeling good. And I left about 8 o'clock at night and told my wife, "Hey, I'm going to the game." And she again told me, "Well, hey, don't get hurt." And I felt like, similar to the poster behind me, I felt like in Rocky IV when Adrian isn't going to support Rocky to go fight the Russian. And, he's got to head off to Russia on his own. He's determined to win and whatever it takes. And so that's kind of the attitude I took into this flag football game. And so I drive my car out to these sports fields, and I arrive at the game and cleats on, headband on, and all of Connor's ex-Rice football teammates are there. An ex-quarterback, the wide receiver, these guys are early 20s, and we're kind of warming up, and I'm doing some high knees, some butt kickers, and getting loose. And, I noticed that my legs were filling with lactic acid. And I noticed that when I was doing those high knees, my legs weren't the fast pistons that they once were, that, I just wasn't quite moving as fast as I used to after 14 years not doing it. And this is the first time I've played any sort of football in 14 years. And so I kept warming up, and then I realized, well, I think this warming up, I think I'm better off saving my energy for the game. So I think I've done enough warming up here, and we're just going to see how it goes. And so that's the first little chink in my confidence to say, I don't know how this is going to go. Anyway, long story short, I get out there, and it's almost as if I've forgotten how to backpedal, not as fast as I used to be. And about 3 plays into the game, I'm rushing. Actually, the first play of the game, I get a penalty because I don't know the rules. of this flag football league. And so I cost the team, we would have stopped him on that drive, but I got a penalty for rushing the passer too soon. All the guys are kind of looking at me like, come on, man. And so you know that feeling when you let your teammates down. It's not a good one. And so I'm like, blaming the ref and just ticked off. And then about 3 plays after that, I'm rushing the quarterback, and literally the cleats, my cleats come apart. So the entire bottom of my SMU football cleats falls off. So then I'm left with one shoe with cleats and one without. And granted, I don't want to tear my ACL. I don't want to pull my hamstring, but I'm going to keep playing. Well, about a play after that, my other cleats fall out. Then I'm left with no cleats. I can't get any traction on the field. And so I had to tell the guys that I was done for the day. And so, what was originally going to be a triumphant return ends up with me on the sidelines watching these guys play. They're exhausted. They have no subs. I'm just kind of this helpless guy here on the sidelines. But, I told myself, well, I could have just left, but I told myself, you know what, I committed to be here. And so what I end up doing is I end up holding the football when they're on defense and throwing it back to them when they're on offense. If the football ever goes out of bounds, I would run and get it and throw it to these guys. And then, just do simple stuff like grab their water for them when they come off the field. So I ended up being the water boy and the guy that holds the football on the sidelines after thinking I was going to go in here and, if not dominate, at least compete on their level. And so it was a humbling experience. And, I took some lessons from this whole experience and that came to me kind of as the experience was going on. I've trained myself over the years to look for the positive side of things, and I do believe that things in life happen for me, not to me. And so the first lesson was the fact that my cleats blew out and I couldn't play. I truly believe that happened because I would have torn my ACL, or at the very least had a severe hamstring pull. The next day, just to give you an example, the next day after having played, warmed up and then played maybe 5 plays, my legs were already extremely sore. And so I can't imagine what it would have been like playing in this entire game. Number 2, in business, I'm very confident. I feel very competent in what I do. And the guys that work with me, Connor and Brady, are learning the business. Connor and Brady have both learned a lot, and they're very competent, but I'm still in that role as the teacher, and they're still in the role as the student, right? I mean, at times we're all teachers and we're all students, but when you're in that role as the leader, as the teacher, you're kind of, at least on the business side of things, you are the authority on what needs to be done, how to do things. And what that can lead to, at least for me, is you feel like you kind of need to be the authority on everything. You feel like you always need to be the teacher. So if we're talking about business, here's what you do. If we're talking about, anything else, diet, well, hey, the real way to, do your diet is this. And even things that you don't have as much expertise as other people, your ego, at least my ego, can allow me to think that maybe I'm an expert, or at least I'm an authority on other items, to where maybe I'm not the authority, And so this was an example. I was watching Connor out there, and he was making some amazing plays, just extremely athletic, making some amazing catches. And I thought, man, this Connor's an incredible football player. Not only is he better than me now, but he's a much better football player than I ever was. I mean, he is at a high, high level. And he brings that same mindset and that same ability to the office every day. And it made me respect him even more than I already did, just seeing him really shine out there. Also his leadership. He was a leader on the team, getting the guys together, telling him what to do, getting everybody on the same page. And I see him developing that in business as well, which is incredible. And it was interesting. Actually, the night before, I was thinking that a teacher is of no value without a student, right? If you're a teacher and you've got no students, you have no value. So the student and the teacher are equally important, and I think it's important to play both roles at times. And I became the student in that role, and had to humble myself in order to serve these guys water and go chase after the football and just stand there on the sideline. And the other realization I came to is kind of the truth can be humbling at times, and it's really my ego thought that I could go out there at 36 years old and still compete and maybe even dominate against some of these guys in their 20s, and it just wasn't the case. And as I started thinking more about it, I realized that even when I played football, the only reason that I was good, or at least as good as I was because I worked extremely, extremely hard every day to be the best I could be. And I put everything I had into it. That was almost my singular goal, was to be the best athlete that I could be, to be the hardest worker in the weight room, to be, just to give it absolutely everything I had. I was never a guy that could just, walk out of the, get up in the morning and just have that natural athletic ability. And so, it's one of those things, if you don't lose, it's like in the 40-year-old virgin, they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I lost it because I haven't worked on this in 14 years. And I started thinking about how that applies to other areas of my life, like business. That's why I think it's so important to do the things that you need to do every day, every week. Things like cold calling. I still, at this stage of my career, I still even go door to door and walk buildings, because that's what keeps me sharp. That's what keeps me on my game in the game of business. I can't just show up in the office, go through the motions, and succeed. This experience taught me the importance of humility, because it just taught me the importance of humility. Let's put it at that. I think I've said enough to understand, for you to understand how this was a humbling experience. And it was funny. It wasn't the end of the world. But it was definitely kind of a realization that, at least in terms of my athletic peak, I'm past that. Tom Brady, I got to give you a big shout out to still be doing what you're doing at this age. If you're watching this podcast, congratulations, because I don't have it anymore. But I'm still glad I did it. I think it's good. One last point is, I think it's good to try things that you were not good at, or put yourself in uncomfortable situations. This was an uncomfortable situation for me. And just going and doing this, it makes it easier for me to do other uncomfortable things, whether that's having an uncomfortable conversation with someone, whether that is a meeting that is, somewhat intimidating, or anything else in my life that I know that I need to face. I think even, no matter what it is, doing uncomfortable things, the more you do them, the more comfortable you get being uncomfortable. So that is what I learned from this experience. I hope some of this resonated with some of you, and I thank you for watching.